Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the Temple Institute Parsha class. My name is Gedalia Meyer, and I'm podcasting from Ma'ale Adumim in Israel. One of the great constants of human awareness of things is being in a state of I don't know. There is always something that we don't know. These things may be trivial or they may be significant, but we are never without them. This seems to be an inborn condition of the human mind. We know quite a bit, but there is so much more that we don't know. This condition begins from the time we first gain some sense of awareness of things other than ourselves. Perhaps infants are blissfully unaware of all that they do not know, but this state of bliss only lasts until the age of 2 or 3, when they recognize that there is so much out there that they haven't a clue about. Children tend to take this state of ignorance in stride. This is just the way things are. There isn't much to do about it, so why bother? But as a child grows in curiosity and knowledge, they begin to realize the extent of their own ignorance. For many, this is not a problem. Again, it's just the way things are. But for others, this becomes a gnawing chasm in their minds, and they yearn to fill it. But as much as we pick up along the way, as we age and mature, the more we realize that we don't know. Even if one really learns a lot through books or classes or personal investigation or communicating with others or simply thinking about things, the more they learn, the more they understand how much they don't know. It is like some video game in which the higher score you attain, the more there is to complete. You can't win because the gap to finish keeps growing wider. Most people learn to accept this state of affairs. It is not a problem because it's just the way things are. There are others who are frustrated by it. Some use this as an impetus to keep going, keep trying to understand more, keep going deeper. Religions may thrive on this state of ignorance, considering it a sign of the reality of God and our own insignificance in comparison. For those who cannot find meaning on such a path, the only avenues of peace are either acceptance or perseverance. The acceptance path is the one most people settle on at some time or another. It is not really giving up as much as not dwelling on what is impossible to ever attain. But there is still within us an ever-present drive of curiosity. We do want to know, even if we can't know it all. Animals have no such problems. They just go on living their lives, not knowing what they don't know and not caring a bit about it. Why can't we do this? Why do we have this incessant drive to know what's going on or what it's all about? It is interesting that we are more eager to watch a movie or read a book that we don't know what's going to happen than one that we already know the ending. The first is interesting because we are curious about what's going to happen. It seems that we prefer discovering the unknown to dwelling on what we already know. Curiosity is an amazing drive. Even though it is never really satisfied, we wouldn't give it up for the world. Imagine not being curious. It's almost impossible to do. What would we do all day? It is this drive that keeps us searching for something else and keeps life from getting boring. It has been there all along, every step of our way through the long human journey. Let's hope that we don't allow the AI gods to take it away from us. This week's Parsha is called Shemot. It is the first Parsha in the second book of the Torah, also called by that name, but better known as Exodus. This is the book that tells the story of the Exodus, the great event of the biblical past that resulted in the Bible as we know it and the creation of the Israelite people. This parsha gets things rolling pretty quickly. The scene is set very early on, with the Israelite people growing rapidly and presenting a threat to the ruling population of Egyptians. This threat is met by subjugation of the Israelites and slavery. When this doesn't do the trick, more drastic measures are taken. For reasons that are unclear, Pharaoh, the villain and prime antagonist of the story, decrees that all male children are to be killed. This decree, unbeknownst to him, was what set the entire divine plan of the Exodus in motion. One of the male babies who was born under that decree was fated to be different. The Torah states that his mother saw that, quote, he was good. It isn't clear what this meant, but it certainly figured into his destiny. She hid him away for 3 months until this was no longer possible. Then she took a small raft-like vessel, coated it with pitch, and placed him floating among the reeds on the river. His sister, we are told, watched from a distance to know what would happen to him. At that point, things really get moving. He is spotted floating on the water by none other than the daughter of Pharaoh. She manages to retrieve the floating raft and uncovers it, seeing the baby boy there crying. She has pity on him and declares that he is one of the Hebrew babies. Then his sister, who had been watching all this unfold, tells Pharaoh's daughter that she can go and find a Hebrew woman to nurse the child. Pharaoh's daughter agrees to this, and the baby is brought back to his mother. When he is finally weaned, he is returned to Pharaoh's daughter, who calls him the name Moshe. It is unclear if anybody knew at this point what his fate would be. It is clear from the text that he was to play a significant role in the way things unfolded. His coming of age and becoming aware of the situation of the Hebrews all happens within a single verse. He gets himself involved in the drama of their suffering in two incidents. He somehow realized that he was a Hebrew, and that he in some way shared their fate. Because of his intervention in their lives, he is forced to flee from Egypt. He runs away to Midian, a tribal area along the eastern side of the Sinai Peninsula. In the course of building up his life there, marrying a local woman and fathering a son through her, he discovers his destiny. It all happens in one of the most pivotal incidents in human history. It is called the burning bush, and it was Moshe's first communication with God. This incident is introduced by Moshe observing an amazing sight, a bush burning but not being consumed by the fire. Rather than push on with whatever he was doing, he turned to see why this was happening. It is when Hashem sees that his curiosity moved him to action that the channel of divine communication is opened. He is told in no uncertain terms that he must direct things so that the Israelites are freed from slavery in Egypt. This is not simply an act of divine justice, but a destiny-changing moment for the world. They are to be the people of Hashem, the receivers of the Torah and the heirs of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Bible would come through them, and the course of much of the world would be determined by their history. The rest of the Parsha tells how Moshe was convinced of the urgency of his mission by Hashem and set out to accomplish it. Things don't go well at first, and Moshe's first efforts seem to make things worse. The Parsha closes on a low note, with Moshe wondering why he ever got involved in this whole divine scheme. The final verse is Hashem telling Moshe that things were all going according to plan and that the Exodus would indeed take place. It is interesting that in two of the stages of this remarkable story, things were moved along by curiosity. First, there was that whim on the part of Moshe's sister to watch what would happen to him. This sister, who we are later to find out was named Miriam, and would play a not insignificant role in the formation of the Israelite people, was quite young at the time. She was probably a child herself, and yet she was the one who kept the story going when it could have folded into obscurity. She told Pharaoh's daughter that she would find a nurse for the baby, and this may have instilled within him the knowledge that he was a Hebrew himself. This very likely was the reason he elected to get involved in the fate of his people. The second is the initial step of the burning bush. The bush was burning and the fire didn't seem to be going out, but this alone would not have set in motion the series of events that eventually led to the Exodus. The key step was Moshe turning to see why this bush was burning but not being consumed. Without Moshe's curiosity moving him to do this, it is possible that Hashem would never have spoken to him. Why was Miriam driven to watch that raft floating on the water? Why didn't she let things be and not witness what was almost certain to be a tragedy? It was because she wanted to know what would happen to him. Miriam somehow sensed that there was something important in the fate of this baby. She had to watch from a distance because she couldn't control things. They were out of her hands, but at least she could know what was to take place. Why didn't Moshe walk away from this strange bush? It seems to have been out of his way since he had to turn to observe it. He could have ignored it and called it a day, but he didn't. And that made all the difference. It was curiosity, the need to know, that drove both Moshe and Miriam to play their fateful roles in the epic drama of the Exodus. They didn't know something and they wished to find out. It was curiosity, the drive to know what we don't know, that inspired them to act when they could have sat on the sidelines and let things happen. Even after they resolved their own curiosity, they were still ignorant about things. Miriam still didn't know what would happen to Moshe. Moshe himself didn't know how the Exodus would play out even after he accepted the mission to direct it. But that didn't stop them from intervening. It was curiosity that triggered the Exodus. We are all curious in our own way. Each one of us has so many things that we don't know and so many avenues to explore. We will never understand it all, but that shouldn't stop us from opening up those doors and trying to find out. Who knows? Maybe one of those doors will open up a path for us for our own personal exodus. There's only one way to find out. Shabbat Shalom.